like that. I know you like that. How long you been back, man? I see the girls in the club, they getting wild for me. And all the pretty chicks all wanna smile at me. These rap cats, man, they all got this style from me. And if I ever see them, man, they probably bow to me. And when this beat drop, I know they gon' lean. World debut, I know they gon'
Welcome into the Saturday Show, everybody. Hope you're doing well on this Saturday morning. Jake Hatch here, Michelle Bodkin there, our co-host of this fine program. We got Christian Esparza, producing for us behind the glass. Michelle, what's up?
You know, not much. I'm running off of little sleep. Very little sleep.
You had to write, like, how many? Like 3 stories last night?
I wrote 3 stories last night. And it's mostly just because Miley O'Keefe is absolutely magnificent and it had to be done. So, I mean, it was like a 2 a.m.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Kind of. And part of it, too, was also just calming down from all that excitement, too. There really is such a thing as like game high. Mm-hmm. And it sometimes takes me a while to come down off of that.
Well, and that's the thing about this. I think a lot of people are like, well, you guys are all these crazy guys. You probably just drop drop dead asleep in the second. No, it takes a minute for the edge, as I call it, like to wear off.
The adrenaline to wear off, yeah.
Because we're there, we're watching the events happen, and we're there, like feeling the emotions of the games and the events that we're at, and it does take a minute. So yeah, that I've had people like, well, you do these BYU and Utah post game shows till like 2 a.m. You're probably like just dead tired. I'm really tired, but my body's like,
yeah, my body's like, this is exciting. Let's keep going.
Oh, man, the travails of sports media, let me tell you. It's real thrilling stuff. But a big thank you to all of you for tuning in, as always. Let's get today started by getting everybody's highlight of the week. You got one for us, Michelle?
For me, it was watching Miley O'Keefe get her 3rd perfect 10 of the season, her 13th on beam overall, her 14th of her career. She's now tied for 1st in career 10s with Teresa. Oh, gosh, I'm going to mess up her last name, Kulaski.
Better than I would have done.
Someone's going to be like, that's not how you say that. I know it because, Gymternet. But anyway, that's really exciting. And I counted last night. They have at least 7 meets left. So,
wow.
At the rate Miley's going, that record is going to be more than hers by the end of this, would be my guess. And I don't know that we will ever see anyone come close to sniffing that ever again.
Can I ask you a question about her real quick?
Sure, yeah.
So with what she's done, like how good she is, is she like Olympic caliber in that single event? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would guess she probably is. The problem is, like, they kind of want people that are strong in all 4 events.
They want all-arounders.
Okay. So to have her go and fill in for just a spot is highly, highly unlikely. And here's the thing. I mean, she's really good at bars and floor as well.
Okay.
Her weakest event is vault. And even that, she's been pretty good at, but she doesn't compete a 10-0 vault. She competes a 9.95 starting value vault, which changes things up a little bit. But she's pretty incredible. So incredible that actually Sharif Shah said something about her last night on.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And I wrote about it. I wrote about it in the story that I did about her. Because it dawned on me, they share that special connection with Aaron Lowe.
Okay, yeah.
And so I thought that was really, really nice of Sharif to acknowledge that she's done so well.
Well, there you go. That's awesome. All right, Christian, you got a highlight this week?
Yeah, I'd say I went and watched my younger sister. She's in 10th grade.
Okay.
She's doing girls wrestling this year. It's a newer high school sport.
It's only been sanctioned for like 2 or 3 years.
Right. Yeah, it's really, really new. Yeah. The school, she goes to Box Elder.
She's a B?
She's a B. It's their first year doing that program.
Okay.
I wrestled in high school, so for me it's kind of cool to see that they're having this opportunity, because when I wrestled, any girls that wanted to wrestle, they had to wrestle against boys, and obviously it was kind of awkward, and obviously it's a little different. So it's really cool for the girls to have this opportunity in high school. And then, yeah, like I said, my younger sister's taking part in that. It's her first year, so she's really trying to figure things out, because it's a really hard sport, especially with no experience. But it's awesome. It's cool seeing her do that.
Well, I can tell you, as a guy who I played football in high school, and I had a bunch of buddies on the football team who were wrestlers. Like, Jake, it's great off-season condition. Come do it with us. Christian, I lasted a week.
Oh, it's
I tapped out. I'm out.
It is probably the hardest, like some of the hardest experiences.
It is
I've
brutal.
ever had. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I quit after I didn't do it all 4 years of high school because I mentally I couldn't.
Okay.
It was hard, man.
It requires a lot of mental fortitude. There's no doubt about that. But I was just like, oh, okay, Dad, I'm out. I'm gonna go play basketball over here.
Just please tell me that their motto at Box Elder is "float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." I get it, slightly
Christian,
different sport,
you
but
can answer this.
We
that would be incredible.
like for the girls wrestling or the school in general.
For the girls wrestling.
They call themselves the Queen Bees.
Okay,
I think
dig
is
it.
what they've been doing.
I can respect that.
I
Yeah.
can totally respect that. Why not?
I can respect that.
Right.
Now, I am the grandson of a former Bear River Bear, so I don't know if
Okay.
that's going to cause issues, but
Yeah, I know some Hatches out in Tremont. Yeah.
that's, the marbles and the Hatches up that way. That's them all my folk. Let's just put it that way. All right. Highlight of my week, I got to give it to my daughter. Last week, I was at her cheer competition, her first official one of 2024, and they beat their longtime nemesis, a.k.a. their sister
Ooh.
Jim, and got first place in their division. So.
We love that.
Yep. So their sister, Jim, had this history of you do really well, but they would do that much better and win first place, but they really get the first place trophy.
Down with the rivals.
Yep. Even though they're all friends and
Right,
such.
yeah,
They
yeah,
practice
yeah.
together all the time. It's kind of funny. But
It's fine. It's
so
fine.
yeah, so that's the highlight of my week. It was fun to see her. She was really excited about it, as you would imagine, but it was really fun to see that go down. All right, so let's get started on today's show. And Michelle, I want to talk a little bit about football. And now, you and I, just before we came on, I said, "Do you want to talk about National Signing Day?" Yeah. You want to know the how far the star of National Signing Day has fallen? That you and I both were kind of like, are we really going to have much to talk about on Wednesday when it officially goes down?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, the fact that you even had to remind me that it was
Okay,
it just
sure.
was not even on my radar. And to be honest, Wednesday will probably come and go, and I would be shocked if I have to lift much of a finger for it.
Now, so that brings me to a question I want to ask you is, do you think that the NCAA needs to revamp this? And what I mean by that is there's a whole litany of different things like NIL out there, transfer portal, that stuff we can discuss. But in this circumstance, National Signing Day used to be a huge deal. I remember the first Wednesday in February
Oh, it
was
was huge,
gigantic. Like you've been tracking these kids if you're into recruiting for quite literally years for some of these kids, and you're seeing, okay, are they going to flip last minute? Are they going to stay? They send those national letters of intent. The fax machines get fired up. You're waiting for the word to come in, and it goes out on social media and the like. But now we have that early signing window in mid-December. I think it was December 18th this past year. But that's when the vast majority, 95% of these classes are signing then.
Yeah.
So do they need to change it and say that's the National Signing Day and this is the secondary signing day?
Yeah, I mean, I discussed a while ago what I would probably do with this signing day. And I think the big thing is you don't open up the transfer portal in December. You wait until after the national championship game. You then open up that transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Early signing day still for the high schoolers, all that good stuff. That can still take place in December. That's fine. It adds more work for staffs, but it doesn't necessarily interrupt something.
Yeah.
And so then you have the transfer portal then open, and you make the second signing day the transfer portal signing day.
That would be
And
a
then
bad
that
idea.
way you don't have teams totally decimated trying to do bowl games or championship games or, whatever the heck, you're trying to compete in. But it still gives those kids ample opportunity to try and find a new home.
Well, and that I actually really like that because you're right. There is a massive, there's massive influx of different things that happen in the month of December. I've actually had some college coaches tell me the month of December has become their busiest month because you think about it.
Totally.
You're finishing up the regular season, and you're also playing championship games if you're lucky enough to do that in your conference. oh, by the way, bowl season starts. Oh, by the way, the transfer portal opens. And oh, by the way, the early signing window is in the middle of the month. And on the other thing is the athletes themselves typically have finals. Like it is
too much.
It's insanity.
It's too much.
And they need to balance it up.
And then you add in like the holidays and people trying to fit that in.
The
like
stress
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and see, and I actually really like what you said. Like you kind of make that if you want the high school, like those guys who are signing with you, you do that in the early signing window, and then you're right, the transfer portal opens up, and then you kind of do the rat race that is the transfer portal, and you can make February essentially okay. All right, where are you going, and that you can kind of announce all that stuff. And
I think the bonus of that too is then you make both days very exciting.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you have your fans engaged for 2 days rather than now all the attention is on December, and in some ways you don't know which way to look in December. I think it's a good way to get some news generated for programs in kind of a slow period.
Well, it also restores the luster, as you mentioned, of the February signing day, because, like you said, like this week, it's like, okay, great. What are we going to see from Utah, BYU? It's like one, maybe two guys, like maybe. I based on what I understand about BYU is that, so Aaron Roderick came on with DJ and PK. This goes back about 2 weeks now. And he said they are holding on the offensive side of the football. He said they're holding 3 slots open right now, ideally for transfer portal. Now, he said that could those guys sign on National Signing Day? Yes. Or could they be announced? Yes. But he's also said that there's a very more likely chance that they actually push that off until the spring. Go through spring ball, which BYU is starting spring ball February 29th. They'll be wrapped up by March 30th. They're going to do 1 month of straight shot, no breaks. Last year they did take a break and they pushed it out to mid-April, but so we'll see what happens. And then that secondary transfer window is when it sounds like, just kind of reading between the lines on what he said in that interview, is when BYU will fill up those 3 slots. And that gives them an opportunity to kind of evaluate where they're at.
And that's more or less what I'm expecting from Utah as well. Is I think let's see what we have.
Sure.
Evaluate where we're at. Evaluate where we still have needs. And be very strategic with it. And I think that's really hard to do at this point because you haven't seen anybody out on the field. Whereas spring ball gives you a chance to kind of see the people that you've brought in, how they interact with all the core people that you're hoping to come back, which some teams have that, some teams don't. That's the weirdness that is college football now. And then you go back to the drawing board and say, okay, where were we still a little deficient? Let's go after that in this second transfer portal period.
So let me also ask you this question. Did you see the news yesterday about the Big Ten and the SEC?
I did.
Okay, so
I did kind of
they
loosely
have formed,
follow that.
They're calling it an advisory group.
Smart. Alliances are awful.
I did tag.
I'm just saying from personal experience twice. They are not great.
Well, I did tag the original tweet I saw of it. Did they look each other in the eye and make an agreement? Like, because that was the whole phraseology when the alliance was formed between what was then the ACC, the Pac-12, and the who else was
Big
it?
Ten.
Big Ten, yeah. And so that one fell by the wayside real quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an advisory group, Michelle. So here's my question about this: is okay. These are the 2 quote-unquote leviathans of college football now. They're the biggest conferences. They got the most power players. They got the most name-brand universities in them. They're forming a joint advisory group of university presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors to, quote, address the significant challenges facing college athletics and how to improve the student-athlete experience, the conference has announced. This came yesterday, Friday. Here's my question, Michelle. Does this feel like to you these 2 saying, all right, we are the big dogs. Let's start doing our thing and start creating what we want to create for college athletics, in particular, college football?
My sneaking suspicion would be yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's always a possibility that that's not what ends up happening,
Sure.
But I think with just the way things have moved the past, year and a half, 2 years, it just feels like that's truly the direction it's going. And it's going to be interesting to see, the decisions that they make ultimately. And if that kind of tears apart the new Big 12, finishes off, the ACC finally cracks that vault, it's there's some interesting things that potentially could come down the pipeline a lot faster than I think most of us were thinking. It's very, very, like I said, it's very interesting. My sneaking suspicion is yes, that's what's going to happen, but it could end up being a big bunch of much ado about nothing.
Well, and that's the other thing about it is we've seen this week alone, Tennessee and Virginia. I don't know why Virginia did this, but they have both filed lawsuits against the NCAA in response to essentially Tennessee getting in trouble and running afoul of NIL rules that, by the way, they, among the hundreds of other universities in the NCAA, voted on these NIL rules. And the NCAA was like, we're just trying to enforce what you guys wanted us to do.
Yeah.
And then so the attorneys general from the state of Virginia, beats me why, but okay, it's litigious society, and we all know that billable hours are undefeated. But then Tennessee files lawsuit. This is kind of the new era that we're in, Michelle. If you do what you're going to do, and in this case, according to the NCAA, the Tennessee Volunteers, the football program in particular, has run afoul of NIL regulations once again for a second time. And now they're like, whoa, and they have their attorney general, the top brass in the state government, say, you know what? Here's a lawsuit. We're gonna tell the NCAA to pound sand. They've got to figure something out here. Whether it is creating a new entity, I don't know what it's going to be. There's been some thought out there. I think I saw Dan Wetzel. I don't remember who it was. It was somebody in the national media saying that he thinks that they should separate college football from the university themselves, create new entities, which essentially they license the name, image, and likeness of the university. So in this case, for Utah Utes, BYU Cougars, etc., and they essentially are their own entity inside the new framework of college football, but they don't actually have direct affiliation with the university themselves.
It's an interesting thought. My one question is, how do they fund themselves if they're not associated with the university? Because
here's the thing. I had a conversation with somebody earlier this week that pointed out that, once again, college football programs in universities, they bring in the most money.
They do.
95% of the athletic funds are generated by that football program. If you were to separate that out, essentially, and farm it out, where does the money come for, no offense, men's and women's basketball? Probably could hold their own, but
a lot of the others would be in trouble.
Softball, baseball, men's, women's tennis, volleyball programs, gymnastics. Utah's a little bit of an interesting.
Utah's might be okay, but the majority of there
are some that are self-sustaining. Like, okay, Oklahoma softball going to be just fine.
Right.
BYU and Utah softball, not so much. So there is so much give and take on this of what the future is going to hold, but there's the whole law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
That if this goes down, and let's say the Big Ten and SEC decide, you know what? Yeah, we are an advisory committee. Oh, by the way, now we're just forming a committee to look at pulling away fully from the NCAA and college athletics in general, just creating our own essentially minor professional league. That's what they'd be going for. It's already that, but official. But if they do that, then it's like, okay, the university system for athletics, it seems like it would crumble real quick without the millions of dollars being pumped in by a football program.
Yes. And like that's where I'm like, I'm just not like, if you separate from the university, you don't have the athletic, like, I don't know how you manage that. That feels, I don't know. I would have to think about that. That feels like it could be a disaster waiting to happen for many, many reasons.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's a quote from that release yesterday about this advisory committee from Tony Petitti. He is now the Big Ten commissioner. He says, the Big Ten and the SEC have substantial investment in the NCAA, and there is no question that the voices of our two conferences are integral to the governance and other reform efforts.
Well, I mean, when you snatched up basically all the biggest brands, there's maybe still a couple floating elsewhere.
In the ACC in particular, but
you know, who's keeping track? You know, it's and that's the other interesting thing too. You also have brands within those two entities that it's like, what are you doing there? So do people start getting kicked out? And let's say a more relevant, like Utah, or I'm trying to think, like an Oklahoma State gets the call up. Like it's just there's a lot of odd moving parts.
Yeah, so it's just so interesting that they create this because it feels like it's a precursor to some real massive reform efforts, which, in my opinion, end up with the NCAA being, and they're already kind of, NCAA, really, their enforcement over college football doesn't really exist. These autonomous conferences, they run themselves. The NCAA has granted them that. Is why it's called Autonomy 5. A lot of people call it the Power 5, and now it's going to be the Power 4, which is still a weird phrase.
Just doesn't feel right.
But that's the situation that's at hand. Do they fully, at some point, using the framework of this advisory committee and kind of moving down the track here, do they eventually say, all right, yeah, we're good without y'all. We're moving on. That's the interesting debate to be had here.
And I would vote yes. And I think, even, schools in the Big 12 and schools that are stuck in the ACC, no matter which way it falls for them, even, feel that way at this point. Like, the NCAA is all gums and no teeth. And
that's in the case of Tennessee randomly this week, apparently.
I don't really see that going over very well. Like it's you already basically told everyone you're not going to enforce anything, so you can't just randomly decide to enforce something and then expect that they're going to be like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Well, and then the other thing about it is those attorneys general have filed, essentially they want temporary restraining orders. And when you have a temporary restraining order, which we've already seen with the 2-time transfer rule in college basketball, and it's also going to affect college football. Well, guess what? The NCAA is like, throw our hands up. All right, have at it. Like that's the situation we're in. So you're right. You have these rules. They try and enforce them. You have your state's top prosecutor essentially say, yeah, that's not going to fly. And then somebody's like, all right, you know what? We tried. It's like
we tried. Yeah, barely. Barely. Like bare minimum just to like make sure that you could keep your cushy paycheck.
Yeah, it feels like there's something's got to give here, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because like we said, we haven't even really scratched the surface of NIL. Like there's all kinds of stuff with that. There's also the situation with the transfer portal, as we kind of alluded to earlier, that when ideally does that go down, and how can you change it to not affect the academics have fallen by the wayside here, but that's the whole thing. Is this still an academic endeavor? No, it's not. But hey, that's okay.
Yeah, funny. That's hysterically funny. It feels like we're all straddling a fault line that's just ready to
really
rip off the big one, and who knows what kind of death and destruction results from that. So
be interesting.
Yeah, that's about how I feel about that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have any good answers for this, but it just feels like these moves this week, kind of that next step. Didn't call it an alliance; it's an advisory group, guys.
It's foolproof.
It's
foolproof.
Who's got the PR firm in their back pocket? Like, do not use the term alliance.
Evil word, and nothing good ever comes from it.
And don't get on a press conference together via Zoom and say, we looked each other in the eye and shook hands and made okay, it's the whole Office. I've never really watched The Office, but I've seen that famous scene. It's the Dwight to Jim. Do you want to form an alliance with me?
Oh, God.
Oh, good times. All right, we'll come back on the other side. Okay, coming up at 11 o'clock, we're continuing on with our Salt Lake Stallions, I guess, interview series?
Yeah.
Retrospective, whatever you want to call it. I can't pronounce her last name. I know her from her time working with Stallions, so help me out, Michelle. Who are we having at 11 o'clock?
So we are going to have Elizabeth Osmeloski.
I see. I would have butchered that. Like, you thought about butchering. I remember working with her when I was covering the Stallions for the short time.
Yeah.
She was awesome. I still, I was like, I'm going to let Michelle handle the last name on this.
Yeah. She was our marketing manager, and we forged, and she's one of the few people that actually lived here and still lives here. She actually is the owner of Scion Cider Bar now, but she and I forged a friendship over gangster rap and red wine. So...
Gangster rap and red wine.
That still exists today.
Michelle?
We're good for like a yearly meeting, and this we already agreed that this does not count as our yearly meeting.
Okay, here's the thing, Michelle. When you write your life story, your autobiography, it needs to be titled "Gangster Rap and Red Wine," a retrospective of Michelle Bodkin's life. I'm telling you, that's a great title. That's a great title. I won't even charge you for it.
Oh, thanks.
All right. We will come back on the other side. I need to dig in a little bit to basketball world as well. We'll talk a little bit about the Utah Jazz. They had a really nice run to get above 500 and then have backslid pretty significantly. We'll talk about that next. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Michelle Bodkin, Jake Hatch along for the ride on this Saturday. Hope you all are doing well. A lot to cover ahead on today's show. By the way, I should say, we have a new lineup on Saturday mornings. We did not move. Real Golf Radio is actually now our new lead-in from 8 to 10 a.m. Bob and Brian doing a great thing. They've been doing that thing for 25 years now.
Wow.
It's been a long time. I've listened to Real Golf Radio for a really long time. It's one of those things like on Saturday mornings growing up, it would just be on and you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And
I'm just gonna listen to this.
I'm a big golfer, so it kind of fit with the whole thing. But all right, let's talk a little basketball here, Michelle. We spent the first segment there talking football, but I want to start off on the basketball front, college-wise. Now, I, for the life of me, don't get the Utah men's basketball program right now. They are just like Jekyll and Hyde. They go on the road and can't win, but they're undefeated at home this year. They're 11-0.
Yeah.
Now, today's an interesting game because Colorado's coming in here, and Colorado's a good team. I think they're a game out of first place right now in the Pac-12. What is it? What you obviously cover this Utah men's basketball team far closer than I do. I've watched their games, but do you have any sense for what is the issue, the road to home disparity for this squad?
No.
Okay. Fair. Hey, I like that. All right, we're going to go home now.
I know. I wish I had the magic answer.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just watching them, it's like their confidence in what they do at home just goes out the window when they're on the road. Why that is, I don't know. I don't know if it's, they had a couple bad games on the road to start, and now it's just like snowballing and becoming a thing. And so every road game, they're now thinking about, oh my gosh, like we suck on the road, like we got to fix this. And then they freeze up and they're just not great. It could be any number of things. It's disappointing they haven't figured that out.
Sure.
And the other part of it is it feels like their injuries also kind of coincide with being on the road as well. So it's, I don't know. I wish I had a great answer. I don't.
Now, the injury concerns, where do things stand on that front?
I mean, they have Davon back.
Yes. That was, by the way, that was awesome to see because when he went down,
it looked bad.
Yeah.
It looked bad.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was like the lone bright spot in that game and was still looking like Davon was good news. That was great news.
Yeah.
As far as where Raleigh is, where Lawson is, I think we're still kind of in wait and see mode, and hopefully it's getting close. Hopefully, maybe, possibly one of them or both of them could. But I think the big thing though is Davon still being in the lineup. It makes things tight, but Davon's a difference maker, and not having Davon available really, really affects what they're able to do.
Now, that you're right. That's the biggest thing is they've got to be able to balance right now, like the minutes, because without Raleigh out there, it puts a lot of stress on a guy like Davon.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lawson, when he's out, obviously you've got Keba Keita and Brandon Carlson, but that ups their minutes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think to any significant level that may have affected just the amount of the extra minutes they're having to kind of shoulder with those two in particular? Is that affecting how they're doing?
I'm sure it would have to. At some point, you get tired, right?
Yeah. Well, trust me, I can speak from the BYU side of it, watching Dallin Hall, who's essentially BYU's only point guard right now. When he goes out of the game, BYU's ability to distribute the basketball goes right out the window.
Right. Yeah. So it's, Brandon was not great in that loss. And I think part of it is, like, he's tired.
Sure.
He's kind of, again, one of the difference makers. I would say the three difference makers for this Utah team is Davon Smith, Brandon Carlson, and Keba Keita. Whenever those three are out on the court, it feels like great things happen. And so when you kind of lose any of those three or don't have any of them available, it really, really limits what this team is capable of doing. And it doesn't mean that there aren't others that step up, but it's a little more random. Gabe Madsen has his moments. Ben Carlson has his moments. But, like, those three are kind of the ones that it feels like you can just throw them out there and expect good things to happen. And so, if they start getting tired, if they get hurt, if you have to pull them out to try and load manage a little, like, it really, it does. It changes what this team looks like out on the court.
Sure. Now, there are so Utah, they host Colorado at 3:00, so that's a big opportunity for Utah to move to 12-0 on their home record and get back above 500. They're sitting at 500 in conference play. The interesting part of Utah is they just got to be able to figure out how to win on the road. If they can pick up a couple of wins down the stretch here on the road, go a long way to really helping them. We had Ken Pomeroy on with DJ and PK, and he talked about the fact that Utah's still very much in the mix to make the big dance, but he kind of pointed to the thing. They can't win on the road. That's only going to hurt them.
Yeah.
So they got to monitor that. Now, we also have Utah State in action today. They are down at Viejas Arena in San Diego. Scotty G will be on the call at 1:00. It's a 1:30 tip on Big Fox, by the way. Between the Aggies and the San Diego State Aztecs. I am interested to see how Utah State handles that environment because this is a San Diego State team that's good. They're not the same level they were last year when they made the run to the Final Four, but that is still a very, very proud program and one that Utah State's got a very kind of fraught history with. Like Scotty was talking about, like, they always go down there and they find a way to. Hey, you got to find a way to win.
Yeah.
Go find a way. And this, by the way, this Utah State team, if you haven't been paying attention, I know Christian, you have because you produce a lot of their games. Great Osabor. If you have not watched this kid ball, he is awesome.
He's tough, man. The other day he had, I think, 19 free throw attempts in a game. Wow. He was 3 shy of the school record, which is 22.
He shot 16 free throws. It was the only 16 free throws Utah State shot until somebody else got fouled in that game. Wow. He's 6'8", 250 pounds, and he is just dynamite.
He's big, he's tough, he's physical. Yeah, he's nice.
Well, he even distributes the ball too, though. He's had games where I think he had like 7 assists in him at one point. And by the way, this guy played off of the bench last year for Danny Sprinkle up at Montana State. Like, it's incredible the leap he's taken, but it's kind of the whole thing with this Utah State team is like they had no points, no rebounds returning to this team, and right now they're 19-2.
I mean, they are probably the success story of basketball in this state this year. It looked like it maybe could have been Utah. It looked like it maybe could have been BYU. I think it's Utah State when all's been said and done. I just feel like they've done a better job of toughing out certain situations that BYU and Utah have both kind of wilted in.
They have been, so they were at UNLV, and that felt like that game was all but over, but random foul calls. And by the way, they just find ways to win. That's the thing about this is and that's a credit to that team. Now, so they will be playing once again at 1:00 pregame here on the Zone. So tune into that. Scotty is down there in San Diego, and it should be a great game. San Diego State is 16-5. I mentioned Utah State ranked 17th, 19-2. So if you want to set up your afternoon here as a basketball fan in this state, kick it off or tip it off.
Yes.
With Utah State and San Diego State at 1:30. Then go dual screen at 3:00 with Colorado and Utah at 3. And then once Utah State and San Diego State wraps up, you can flip over to number 22 BYU, who's on the road today at West Virginia. Now, Michelle, you asked me, okay, what do you know about West Virginia? And this is the interesting part about this West Virginia team is they're 8 and 13. They're 10th in the Big 12 right now. But if you look at their season, Michelle, they have a really, really funny kind of setup. But they win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. Like that's their repeating pattern a lot of this season. But a lot of it has coincided with injury. And also getting guys eligible off of NCAA transfer portal stuff. Once they got essentially all their guys, and they had the whole Bob Huggins getting fired thing affect this team in the offseason. But essentially, since they got their guys healthy, Michelle, they have beaten Texas. They lost at Oklahoma. They came home and upset Kansas in Morgantown. Then they lost back-to-back at UCF, at Oklahoma State, and then just recently, their most recent game, they beat Cincinnati at home. Mark Pope pointed out this week during media availability, their splits, road to home, it sounds very eerily similar to what Utah's dealing with right now. They essentially go on the road and can't find a way to win. They shoot worse. They are minus 30 in free throw attempts. They can't rebound. They have all of these issues.
Yep.
They come home. They shoot 11 percentage points higher. They're plus 30 in the free throw margin. Like it's almost night and day with this West Virginia team. But this is a BYU squad that's going across the country and has got to be very wary of the fact that these guys, they're playing on their home court. And when they've played on their home court, they have upset number 25 Texas, number 3 Kansas, and Cincinnati, a team that beat BYU in Provo.
West Virginia is the Sour Patch Kid of college basketball.
Sour and sweet, no doubt.
First they're sweet, and they're sour.
But the interesting part, I'm interested to see how they handle this because BYU's had the whole week off, by the way, and similar to Utah, they didn't have a midweek game. They had their one, call it mid-season bye. It's the one of the conference season, and the interesting part about BYU is, as Mark Pope pointed out, Ali Khalifa hasn't practiced at all this week. Now, he didn't really elaborate on what that's been, but there has been some sickness going around the team that they've talked about. He's also been dealing with a knee injury that's not, let's put it this way, people ask, like, when does knee get better? It's not. It's as good as it's going to be right now this season. He's wearing that knee brace. He's holding up. And when the Egyptian magician, as they call him, is on the court, he's awesome. And anybody who's watched him, his passing ability is absolutely electric. You look at the metrics, Michelle, the top 10 assist to turnover ratio in the country, everybody on that top 10 list is 6'3" or shorter, and then you have Mr. 6'11" Ali Khalifa from BYU at I think number 5 right now in the country.
I mean, it's impressive. That is impressive. I love anomalies. I really do. I love a good anomaly.
And he absolutely is an anomaly. So I'm interested to see how all three of these teams handle this because you look at it, it's a big opportunity for both Utah State and BYU on the road. But then Utah, well, they're essentially unbeatable at home. Does that continue to hold up here? Or at some point, does the levee break for this squad and either their road woes catch up with them at home or they break through on the road at some point here in the near future and pick up a W?
Yeah. A lot of questions will be answered this weekend about all three teams, and it's going to be exciting.
And let me also reiterate, it is awesome to have all three of these teams doing what they're doing, by the way, in the mix for postseason.
Just makes it so much easier to have things to talk about, report on, and then, of course, you add in some of the women's teams.
Sure.
And,
well, as I say, I'm not going to leave out the Utah women's team. Like
totally.
They absolutely dominated last night up in Seattle against Washington. They head to Washington State. Is that Sunday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sunday at 1.
Yeah. So that's the thing about this is we've got a lot of good college hoop, which, let's be honest, we haven't had that for a while.
It's been a little while. Like maybe at best one of the teams had been doing well.
We'll have one team that kind of steps forward. It felt like annually. And was like, okay, well, that's the team to watch. It's been kind of rare to have all three of it, and I call them the big teams in the state. That's what they are. Don't get offended at Wildcat and Thunderbird and Trailblazer fans. The big three in the state. It's very rare we get all three of them operating at kind of the level they're operating at right now. Now Utah, as I mentioned, they've kind of fallen off the pace a little bit here because they're 14-7.
Yeah. So
they've kind of pushed themselves back into the bubble territory, whereas not even like 2 weeks ago it was like, yeah, they're in. Like
right. It's look, they got to figure out whatever that is.
Sure.
And they're kind of pushing up into that do or die time. You're either going to do it and be fine, or you're not, and it's going to be back to the drawing board, and fans are going to be mad, and blah blah blah. I personally would prefer figure it out.
Well, all of us would, because the biggest thing is we like to have storylines in sports media to talk about. Well, having Utah State and BYU, who, by the way, they are all but locked up, it feels like, for postseason right now. Just the fact that they're ranked right now, we're in the final month of the regular season, they'd both have to fall like completely flat on their face, like lose out from here on out, not to make it in. Utah, like you mentioned, they've kind of fallen back a little bit, but that opportunity, it's still right there. And I'm with you. I'd like to see them just figure it out. Like, pick up a couple road wins down the stretch. Do we know? I'm going to pull their schedule real quick and take a look.
Yeah.
But and they've got an opportunity here to go out and make some impression. So they're home to Colorado. By the way, they've got a big game stretch. So home to Colorado, and they got the Arizona schools coming in next week. So you pick off Arizona, that'd go a long way. But then you have a 3-game road stretch after that. That's, I think, that's the defining stretch, it feels like. Because this is the month of February. This is where you really kind of differentiate yourself. You go to USC, who looks like a dumpster fire, by the way. Yeah. Andy Enfield has got all kinds of talent, but can't seemingly figure out what's going on. Then you're at UCLA, at Colorado. Am I up in the night thinking that 3-game stretch could make or break things?
No. I mean, they haven't won a road game since out of conference.
Yeah.
Like, they need a road win. If they don't get one there, they're kind of not getting one. And especially, again, as you mentioned, USC isn't great. UCLA really is not great.
You've already beaten UCLA.
Those are two teams that this Utah team should be able to handle.
Yeah.
On the road or at home. Either way, like, you should not be losing to those teams. Colorado, at Colorado, a little bit of a different story.
Sure.
But if you can't at the very least get a win at USC, you ain't getting a road win.
Doesn't seem that way. And then they do finish up at Oregon State and at Oregon. It'll be the final two. That's the final 2 games of the regular season in early March. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Utah handles this. But that's why we play the games, right?
Yeah, getting guys back would also be helpful.
Sure,
but
and that's the big, because everything I've heard, and you pay attention close to this, it feels like Craig Smith's been very kind of, I don't know, elusive is probably the wrong term, but very like, he doesn't want to reveal anything, it feels like, about Raleigh Wooster and Lawson Lovering in particular.
Yeah. I think there's a little I think there's certainty that they'll be back at some point. I think there's uncertainty as to when exactly that is.
He doesn't want to put him on a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. All right. So, yeah, interesting times. I'm going to talk to some Utah Jazz. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But coming up next, we will get to technical fouls, talking about some of the things that happened in sports. Had a good one submitted by one of our great listeners, Clinto Pete, yesterday, which is let's put it this way. We don't go to NASCAR a lot, but this one's really, really funny. We'll get to that next. This is the Saturday Show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
You'll get hit with a bat.
'cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time now for technical fouls, and we got some stuff to discuss. Now, we don't have a ton of listeners submit our submissions each week, but our good friend Clinto Pete, who listens to this show all the time, and I appreciate Clinton and his support, he sent this one to me yesterday, Michelle, and it's a picture, and he said, technical foul on NASCAR. And now, this one made me chuckle because a lot of people out there don't maybe pay all that close of attention to NASCAR, but this one's interesting because Ryan Blaney is the reigning NASCAR champion. And so, you know who Bubba Wallace is by chance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's sponsored by McDonald's. He's sponsored by Michael Jordan's race team. He wore number 23 on his car and everything. Like, he's one of the few African American NASCAR drivers that's on the pro circuit right now. And there was a picture of him. This is so funny. He's at the New York Knicks. I'll pull it up right here. So that Bubba Wallace is in the house tonight from the New York Knicks. Now, do you see who tagged it? Let me remind you, Ryan Blaney is the reigning NASCAR champion. Says getting cropped out of this is some cold and uses the poop emoji. So they're at Madison Square Garden, and it's like I'm like you have the reigning champion who's sitting right next to Bubba Wallace, but hey, Bubba Wallace is here.
Oh man. You know what? The reigning champ doesn't matter. Who
It
cares?
screams to me that the social media person was like, I don't know who this chump is over here. He's like, my name's Ryan Blaney. I have the points championship this year. But Bubba Wallace, yeah, I know who Bubba Wallace is. Let's go. Made me chuckle. So, Clint, thanks for sending that in. So funny. All right, Kristen, you said you had one this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go over to Draymond Green. It's a little bit of a controversial thing with the whole 65-game threshold, right, to basically be eligible for awards in the NBA.
To be able to be MVP, essentially.
Right, MVP, and I believe like Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, if you want any of the
All-NBA
awards,
teams.
six-man, all that type of stuff.
Right,
You got to
so
play.
Draymond Green was on his podcast, and he was just basically complaining about this rule.
Oh.
Me personally, I think, and I don't know if maybe it's just because Draymond Green was complaining about it. I don't like Draymond Green, but I like 65 games out of 82. That's 80%, right? What other job can you get recognition but not work 80% of the games? I don't know. And I realize there's a lot more that goes into the sport of basketball besides just playing on game night. But I really don't. I don't know. Maybe I need to put myself in the shoes of the players, but like I feel like asking the players to play 65 games is not that big of an ask if you're talking about MVP and offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, whatever.
This is a big discussion. You're no doubt about that. Here's the thing. The NBA currently is in the middle of TV negotiations. They are planning on cashing into the tune of tens of billions of dollars, but hundreds of millions for these players are in play here. The NBA for years has allowed the quote-unquote load management to dominate. Remember, come on, the whole thing is the nickname for Joel Embiid was the process for years because they literally sunk their franchise into the depths and built themselves back up. Suddenly, this year, they have put out a statement that, load management doesn't positively or negatively impact injury rates. They're pushing this narrative that you need to play 65 games. Not narrative, but it's a rule now to play. Come on. TV ratings, folks, and those billions of dollars are at stake. Suddenly the NBA's like, hold on, maybe we're not going to get the number we're looking for.
With all the stars.
Yeah, with them sitting
missing
out.
games, right.
And by the way, I will forever give credit to LeBron James. He is the one guy, and there are other guys similar ilk that have done this, but LeBron has showed up so much during his career when he easily could have sat out.
He's pushing 40 years old and
he's-
still going dang near every night.
He's still balling, by the way. He's awesome. He is an incredible player. I got one other one, Michelle. Do you have one real quick?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Do you guys see what happened at New Mexico State this week? So this is a basketball program last year got shut down completely for hazing.
Right.
Now, Robert Carpenter is part of the new team at New Mexico State. They're playing Liberty down there in Las Cruces. He's battling with a guy from Liberty. It's like not even just a little under 12 minutes left to go in the first half. So this is not like late in the game, like you got in each other's skin or whatever, and like you're angry about something. This is early on in this game. He's battling for position with a guy from Liberty. And then he just, I don't know what happened, he loses his mind and cold cocks the guy in the face. It's like,
I wasn't even watching the game, but like I'm sitting there and I get an ESPN notification.
same here. I saw
New
that.
Mexico player
Trust me, I don't watch New Mexico State basketball. Sorry, no, but I get the same thing. I'm like, okay, I gotta watch this. I pull it up, and he just swings, and he connects right on like the orbital bone of this guy. Guy goes down, obviously, because you get punched typically. And by the way, this kid knew he was getting thrown out. He untucks his jersey and starts just taking off.
Well, you guys said that you don't watch New Mexico State basketball.
I do.
It sounds like we all should be because, it's WWE plus college basketball.
I don't know. It was crazy. His coach said that he is, from his own perspective, he's like, I'm assuming the conference and the university is going to have a say on this. He's not playing for me for at least the next little bit. At least, I'm like, yeah, you think? This is a program that was shut down last season due to hazing allegations. The entire program was shut down. They whacked the entire staff. More than 80% or 90% of the team left.
gone.
That's what I was going to ask. Was this kid on the roster last year?
I don't
Do you
believe
know?
so, because he is a transfer. He's a 2-time transfer, actually similar to everybody else out there, it feels like, in college basketball, Michelle. He spent time like Hofstra or somebody, and so...
They just attract a certain ilk of people. It's fine.
Apparently
It's fine.
so.
It's
like
fine.
His third Division I school after spending time with St. Bonaventure and Mississippi Valley State. So there you go. But yeah. Okay. Well, good times. All right. So that's technical fouls for this week. But don't punch people. Come on.
Not unless they're threatening your life.
And by the way, like, yeah, sure. And I'm sure New Mexico State's like, please, can we go a basketball season without making headlines of the wrong type?
Yes.
Like, tough scenes. But all right. That's it for Technical Fouls. We'll come back on the other side. We'll talk a little more basketball. We got football coming up as well. It's all ahead right here on the Saturday Show.
We are back at it on the Saturday Show. I am Michelle Bodkin. Jake Hatch, of course, is with me. And proud to bring in our next guest. This is a live one because, there were only a handful of us that worked for the Stallions that actually lived in Salt Lake.
You all survived and stuck around?
Well,
Just kidding.
well, I mean, this is home for me.
Sure.
This is home for her. I'm talking about our old marketing manager, Elizabeth Osmeloski.
Thank you.
Yes. So happy to have you.
Thank you. Even though you called me old. No, I'm just kidding.
Did I call you old?
You said old. No,
Old
I don't.
marketing manager.
Previous.
Our previous
Yes.
marketing
VP of
manager. My bad.
marketing. Let's not call me old. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving her a hard time.
That's okay.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. Like Michelle said, a lot of the ones we've done so far, we're calling this like a series, like a retrospective on
Yeah.
the Stallions. Well, most of them are out of state, all over the
Right.
country now, but it's cool to have you still here.
Well, I mean, in you guys' defense, that was all the football operations side
Sure,
of it.
yeah.
And players, and I feel
We have other...
feel a little being the first front office and business person of. I'm not as cool as those guys who were on before.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true. That's not true at all. Because actually, I think we talk a lot about the failures of the Alliance of American Football.
Do you know?
I mean, they're numerous, and we could spend forever talking about that. But I think one of the things they got right was celebrating women in sports and giving a bunch of us opportunities. I'm pretty sure you were one of the only female marketing managers.
No, there were two others. Atlanta had one,
Okay.
and San Antonio did.
And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I was one of the only female coaching assistants, if not
yeah.
the only one. Our reporter, our team reporter, Chantel, was the only female reporter.
Yeah,
the rest
I
of them were
remember
male.
that. Yep.
So, I mean, some just really, really cool opportunities. And our team especially, I think, had women in key places, key spots.
I would agree with that, definitely.
Now, the interesting part about that was I remember I was covering the team. I was all geeked out the fact that I have professional football in this market, so I was all in on it. But the fun part about it was, to your point, we're starting to see women get into more spots in professional football, and that I'm talking across USFL. Well, it's now with UFL.
Yeah, we got to get that right.
Formerly XFL and USFL, but it's also getting into the NFL now as well. We're starting to see female assistant coaches, front office executives. There was a woman that was up for a GM job this current off season. I don't think she got it, but the fact they're even being mentioned in these circles, I think that's one of the legacies of the Alliance, is that they were willing to take that leap of faith.
Right. And there were definitely coaches and trainers, female coaches and trainers within the Alliance. And
Sure.
Dr. Jen Walter, still doing that now. And definitely there were a few. Where do we want to start?
I know. Where do we want to start? Seriously. How did you get involved with, how did you find out about the Stallions? How did you end up getting the job that you got?
Okay, great question. And I'll have to obviously jog my memory because 5 years does feel like a long time, especially with COVID since then,
I know.
right? That
Yes.
just infinitely stretches out the time.
Well, that's the thing. It feels like it's been 15 years in so many ways, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in 2018, I've been in marketing, like digital marketing specifically, my entire career.
Okay.
I also earlier in my career, I did action sports journalism. So like that's really the only sports background I completely had, and just outdoor recreation, nothing really professional, other than covering some Olympics stuff from afar. And that was 2002 era. So the Olympics were here in Salt Lake. And I was living in New England. And in 2004, I came out for a visit for the first time to Salt Lake and moved here. Right after the Olympics, I moved here in 2004. So that's kind of like the quick background on me. But in 2018, I had been with this digital company for a good 10 years. I was just looking for a change. And I really am attracted to the intersection of media, sports, business, and brand marketing, and entertainment, right? So I was specifically looking in that lane, and I was really realistically going to move out of state right before the Stallions came about. So it was just kind of happenstance. Like we had like ripped out our basement to remodel it like 4 months before the job came along, and it pretty much changed the trajectory because we were told by the Alliance that we had 3 years of funding.
Yeah.
So we were going to like move up to the Portland area, and my husband was going to start or work in the cider industry in the Portland, and that's only relevant because we'll come back to it later.
Yes, we'll get to that in a moment here.
We'll get to that in a moment. It changed the trajectory when I got this job. I mean, I don't even remember. I was doing obviously all these job searches in the sports media world. I don't even remember how I came about, but it all happened very quickly in September of 2018. And I met the president, Tyler Howell, and met with Rich Merbrook, a couple other people kind of on the broader Alliance side. And, it just happened so fast. And I had to wrap up my last conference that I produced for my digital company the first week of October. So I started literally the next week, the second week of October. So what's crazy about that story, too, is just that I was the last VP of marketing hired. So in context of the Alliance and specifically the challenges we faced here, in terms of getting the word out and having a plan, I was 3 to 4 months behind the rest of my marketing peers, right? And that is just a tough time with the holidays. It was like an election year, too. Yeah. So just buying advertising at a premium rate during that time is a huge challenge. And I was thrown to the wolves, trial by fire, because I had no idea what I was doing in sports marketing, to be honest with you. So, but that's kind of the short story.
Now, obviously, we've had a bunch of individuals on who've talked about kind of like the football side of the experience with this. You talk about the fact you were behind the 8-ball beginning, but talk about the experience as it kind of played out. Does that make sense? Like in season? Yeah, no, for sure. And I will say Tyler and Rich both came from NBA sales experience. So they had the sports background. So and then our director of sponsorship, Jim Braun, also tons of both college and other sports experience. So I learned a lot from them really, really quickly. And that's great. That's how I do best, honestly. But again, Tyler, I think, had only been hired like a month before me as president. So we were all sort of just, doing everything at warp speed. So I had to hire my staff, as Michelle said earlier. I had to hire a cinematographer. I had to hire a social media manager. I had to hire Chantel. So she still lives in Salt Lake, too. So you can get her on next.
I thought about it. It'd be good to see her.
So Chantel, our sports reporter, and then I hadn't even hired this key critical role until very, very late, game presentation manager, basically. Okay. So somebody who worked at the stadium for games. Game ops. Yeah. I mean, I didn't hire that. I didn't have that person in place, which didn't actually matter because we didn't have our first home game till well into February. So that one I kind of delayed on, but I got somebody who had previously worked in Green Bay and for the Chiefs as well. So he had the experience at least. So that was great. So that was just kind of the speed at which we had to operate. I think a lot of things I don't have a ton of insight into because it happened at the Alliance level, like how it came about, playing at Rice Eccles versus the RSL stadium. Like that was a huge debate. And I think that contract got sealed so late in the game. So again, hard to plan a lot of things. Some things that we were up against the wall with, like in terms of what we couldn't do, what other teams could do to build a following, or just enhance the game experience. Obviously, we were the only cold weather team who was going to play, in the middle of winter, which the powers that be in the Alliance liked the idea of. And, we're used to it here.
We are used to it here.
And we're fine with that.
It's not a huge deal.
Right. But specifically, one of the things, I know, now I'm just dishing dirt here.
It's fine. That's the whole purpose.
That's the whole thing with the whole weather
Exactly.
thing. There's a misnomer that they think like this is like Green Bay. It's
right.
not.
It's not.
No.
It's not. And
Yeah.
again, me being from New England, my
Sure.
husband is from Green Bay. Like, we
Yeah.
kind of laugh when people think it's
Oh, play in the winter.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, Buffalo's laughing at you right now.
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely.
So it was kind of funny just from that perspective. We definitely were not scared of that. And think about how nice our weather can be in March. Like, we had a March home game. I had shirtless people in the stands getting a sunburn.
Yeah. Yep. We did have that.
We did. So it was kind of crazy from that perspective. But one of the things that was going against us was, of course, the U at the time was a dry stadium. And not only that, they built in their contract we could not allow tailgating the way they do it in the lot on the U. So that was a massive blow just in terms of opportunities, because think about there's corporate sponsorship opportunities in that tailgating lot for Utes games. So that was something we just had to battle, and nothing we could do about it, unfortunately.
I mean, yes, I think that's something that people don't necessarily know a whole lot about this team is a lot of stuff was very, very last minute. I'm pretty sure our colors and our logo were last minute because when Randy hired me, he said the theme for the AAF is not like live living things. Well, all of a sudden, roll out a pony and we're the only ones that have a live animal, and I'm like, you just thought of this last minute, didn't you?
No,
like you had nothing else. You couldn't figure anything else out. And even my job, I was supposed to actually be over PR. That's what Randy and Dennis hired me for, and the league nixed it. And we didn't have a PR person in place until I think we were already playing games before he was hired. And on top of that, Randy and Dennis were pissed. They were so mad that they were overrode on that one that they wouldn't even talk to the guy.
Right.
So it was like I was the buffer between that guy and them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should have said that.
Hold on.
But
This okay. And I'm coming from the media side, who was there trying to get interviews and whatnot.
Yeah.
This explains a lot.
It does.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
And to be fair, the head of PR for the league didn't want that person.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Really? I hadn't heard that. I thought that was their guy. They wanted
somebody
this person.
else. Involved.
Mystery.
I don't really know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really was. It was a whole thing. But they wanted me because I had worked in media here. I knew all the media people. And the crazy thing is, our PR guy started blocking and not telling local media when our practices were. There was a point in time when I had Dave Fox texting me, "Hey, when is your guys' practice and where is it?"
And even David texted me.
And even towards the end, he stopped letting you guys know when stuff was.
Yeah.
Our own in-house people, he wouldn't let know when we were doing stuff. It was an absolute mess.
It was tough. It was really, really tough.
Okay, so you talk about trajectory being changed. Well, here's the thing. You're still here in Utah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, fast forward 5 years. Like I said, we were going to move to Portland so my husband could pursue the cider industry. And 5 years later, or 2 years ago, I opened up a cider bar here in Salt Lake City. So I'm doing something completely different now.
but, okay, it's called Scion Cider Bar.
Correct.
I have been scrolling through your guys', let's just put it this way, hearty selection of different ciders. Why did you decide to stick around Utah? What about it? Because you said you came here in 2004 and said, I'm moving here.
Well, I came to ski and love the outdoor rec.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
That's definitely why.
And that's a draw for a ton of people.
Right. Although last couple of years I haven't been skiing.
Well,
skied like 2 hours once this season.
When you found a business, you're kind of in charge of things. It takes up a lot of time.
Totally.
Yes.
And Visit Utah and Visit Salt Lake have done such a good job marketing that, and the ski traffic is insane now. So I'm kind of over that.
It's true. Yep. Try and get up either one of the Cottonwood Canyons. You go up to Park City on a Saturday. It's nuts.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, whatever. I still love to try to do things outdoors, but yeah. I mean, like I said, we were going to go up to Portland because that's where like the cider scene is primarily, and my husband was going to do that. And when Alliance told us we had the 3 years of runway, we're like, well, better figure it out because we've got to do something else. And so my husband started a cider distributor.
Okay.
So he now imports all of the ciders, or most of the ciders that we carry at our bar.
Got it.
So I own it. He does not own the bar. He has his own separate company. That's a federal thing, not a Utah thing. I always say that.
He's the distributor.
He's the distributor.
You're the owner of said establishment.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I have partners. I have a lot of business partners.
But it's nice to have you have the distributorship over here, and oh, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we do use other local small distributors because this particular category of alcohol is not well served by the Utah State liquor stores. So you have to basically bring it in especially. Okay. So, kind of like the Alliance, when I take a risk, I go big, right? Like I didn't know how the Alliance was going to turn out. And the same thing with the cider bar. Like when you're kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit or that startup mentality, there's a huge chance of failure. And that's doubly true in the restaurant and bar industry in general. But our bar has the second largest collection of cider in North America. So, yeah.
It's pretty impressive. Right here in our backyard in Utah.
So impressive.
Right. Which would have been cool. Again, bringing it back to the Stallions would have been really cool if we could have stuck that around and grown it here.
Sure.
If we were in a different world.
Well.
or if we were in the XFL. So we did choose poorly. We should have gone the Vince McMahon XFL route. And that is kind of some of the history, right? Like the Alliance was trying to race to beat XFL to the punch.
Cut a lot of corners, which is why it did not survive.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so with what you're doing here at the Scion Cider Bar, like how's the response been locally? Like people embracing it? 'Cause obviously you've been doing
great.
Okay, good.
No, I mean it is good. It's always good, right? I mean, so many struggles, right? To open up a bar or restaurant business post COVID when all the that was a crazy struggle. So again, like I'm not afraid of failure or afraid of hard things, I guess is the lesson there. One of my key business partners and GM, he is the founder of Proper Brewing. Okay. So he's got a lot of expertise on that side. Yeah. So, and he Proper has like a branded Utes can right now, I think. So yeah, I mean, we've definitely had a great response because what we're doing is so unique in Salt Lake. Obviously, people see it too, just outside the state. And, as a marketing person, that's my goal too, to attract, a loyal following of local Salt Lakers, get the word out. I go on media all the time locally for that. I mean, so there's elements that I've brought back because I've made so many local media appearances with the Stallions too. So it's kind of full circle in some ways. I mean, Michelle and I have joked that I pretty much have completed the media circuit. I think I personally have to be on 2 News. I got Coach Erickson and some of our guys on Talking Sports, but yeah.
I happen to work with a guy who, may do some things with 2 News and Talking Sports. I produce DJ and PK every day.
Right.
David
That's
James.
true.
So,
that's true. Yeah.
I can put a good one with David and see what we can do here.
Well, I mean, I have to be on like the daytime show, and I've done the daytime show and talk about food and wine and how that goes together. But yeah, I mean, it's been a fun ride. And having been through the startup world where others are in control, at least as an owner, you get to control your destiny. Which
you have your hands on the wheel.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like I have so much PTSD from some of these experiences in other people's startups and dreams that if I'm going to fail, it's got to be on my terms, right?
Totally. So before you came on, I told Jake that you and I connected off of a love of red wine and gangster rap.
Yes.
Like, what is your memory or core memory of doing this whole weird thing?
Of well, one, I have to make a title edit, as the editor in me can't. It should be Stilettos Gangster Rap.
Yes,
and
that's
Red
right.
Wine,
That is right.
The
Yes,
title of
there
Michelle's
was-
forthcoming book.
That's an even better memoir title. I like
I know.
this.
I told you.
Well done.
I have
well done.
to. Yes, I
See,
have
we
to.
bring in a marketing expert. She's going to one up it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So yes, aside from that time that we bonded, and to be fair, that's going back. We bonded when we were in San Antonio because you had to live there for a ridiculous amount of weeks.
Yes, I lived with hundreds of guys, and I was basically the only woman there.
Well,
except
and
for
my
two
two girls.
others.
Yeah, and the two girls on my team.
But they were also in and out.
True.
So it's just like sometimes they were there, sometimes they were not there.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, and I only got to spend the first week of training camp down in San Antonio, and then a couple days later in the month. So that's when Michelle and I kind of hung out at the hotel bar, and it started from there. But I think your question is more like, what's my biggest memory or like my takeaway, really, right?
From being with the Stallions.
And the beautiful thing about obviously what I do in digital media is just that it can live on. So I think one of the things I am most proud of producing, like as my role in terms of directing my content team, is, and I was lucky to be there that week, that it was going to be announced that Dennis Erickson was going to be inducted into the College
That was so
Hall
cool.
of Fame, and then Troy Polamalu as well. So we got to see him there during that week when that was announced. But my team basically secretly recorded all the other coaches.
That was incredible.
To get their thoughts on working with Coach E and what they meant to him. And you can watch this on YouTube. It's on the AAF Stallions YouTube channel. And it's emotional,
It
right?
is.
And it's beautiful. And it's just such a great tribute to the camaraderie that obviously all football teams and have at some point, if they're lucky to catch that and have a great coach and a great coaching staff. So I just love it. And I'm super proud of that piece in particular.
Well, and I guess the last thing I've got for you is through all of these interviews so far, and we got plenty more to go, because trust me, Michelle's got her tentacles everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
Talking to all these people, and I love it. It's awesome because I was covering from the media side of things, is that every one of these interviews have come back to, I think, a singular point. Y'all bonded from this experience, and it went down in flames. Like, and it's unfortunate the way it went down, obviously, but all of you who were involved in it have a connection now. And that's the fun part about it. 5 years later, it still exists.
Yeah. And we check in with each other
Sure.
from time to time. I mean, Rich has talked about getting the gang back together to celebrate. And guess where that's going to be? Probably a Stallions party at Science Center Park.
Yep.
So,
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
so yeah, I mean, it could happen.
My last thing that I feel like we need to bring up before we let you go, you have to tell the story about our pretty pony.
Oh.
I have not heard this story, so I'm excited.
Yes. And just minor correction, the Commanders also had a horse on their field.
Did
the
they?
San Antonio
I don't
Commanders.
remember that.
They did. Unfortunately, because things were happening so last minute for us, we didn't have ours for our first home game,
yeah.
but she was committed to the 4 remaining home games. But so Renee Callie was a former Miss Utah Rodeo, and I found Stryker.
Okay.
But as you know, Rich likes to call him Galaxy, but his name was Stryker the Stallion. That's his real name. And yeah, she was great, and she worked with us to lead the team out onto the field. And that, again, fun piece of production with that. So it's a great time.
I just love the argument with Charlie over where the funds should go, and he wanted that horse so bad.
Right. And so he did want
I
the
don't
horse.
care if you have fans in the stands or if anyone knows you exist. That pony will be there.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, you did what you
And
got to do.
as far as I know, I'm pretty sure she got paid. I think the university
so.
took care of her.
Okay,
So,
that's good. That's good.
yeah. So
Yikes.
to end on a high note.
All right. Well, Elizabeth, it's awesome to have you in.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, your cider bar, you can go through that menu, and you've got, and I call it a menu, but it's just a selection list, and it is expansive. So essentially, anybody who wants to try the cider scene,
Universe,
whatever,
Yeah.
you guys are the place to go. It seems like you said the second largest
In North America.
North America.
Yeah, and we do all sorts of educational.
Who's number one, by the way? Where's number one?
It's in Seattle, so
okay,
not
all right.
surprising.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna go to Portland, so the Northwest.
Yeah,
okay.
Northwest. Yeah.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. Cider, a lot of it connect with apples, and hey, the apple, So, anyways, but
No, you're right.
it's good to have you in, and we wish you nothing but the best, and we'll have to do this again soon, all right?
Definitely. There's so much more to say.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we will come back on the other side. We'll get into some of the topics we have not had a chance to touch on quite yet. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you all are doing well on this Saturday morning. All right, Michelle, we have two Olympians that have just been signed, sealed, and delivered going to Paris 2024, and they're Utah connections.
Yay!
Clayton Young and Connor Mance, both former BYU All-American, All-Everything, track and field and cross-country stars, finished 1-2 at the Olympic marathon trials this morning.
Whoa.
So we got two Olympians that have just punched their tickets this summer going over to Paris. So
Love that.
it's
I know of a potential third in the works. Utah's Emily Morgan is going to be heading back to Great Britain to compete and see if she can't stamp her place in with Team Great Britain.
well, I'm just saying, and with the connections that track and field is now worldwide,
So crazy.
BYU's probably got. This is just me postulating, but there's probably 5 or 6 others from BYU that'll go and try and qualify from their home nations and whatnot. But 1-2 in the Olympic marathon.
It's just, and kudos to you for even wanting to run a marathon.
Well,
to be honest,
I've had who was I talking to not too long ago? Like, Jake, would you ever consider running a marathon? I'm like, no.
Absolutely
and
not.
I kind of floored him with how quick I responded. Like, why not? Like, wouldn't I'm like, running, never been my thing. And number 2, all I hear from my friends that have done marathons is the suffering that you have to put up with. To a person that I know that has run a marathon tells me mile 20, you're they call it the suffer fest. I'm like, okay, no offense. That doesn't sound fun.
No, there's nothing about that sounds fun. You know what? Utah fans did good getting me involved with the 597 Ty Jordan challenge. That's about that.
That'd be enough.
That was spread out over months, and I could walk, I could run, I could hike in order to get those miles. But that's as good as that's ever gonna get.
I'm very much an anaerobic sports person, not an aerobic sports person. Let's just put it that way. No, it's just, but it's awesome to see this because these are guys who, like I said, they had incredible careers at BYU and they've done really nice things. And by the way, we got to give a tip of the cap to Ed Eyestone. Obviously, he's a legend in his own right. He's been to the Olympics. He's a coach of BYU's track and field and cross and country programs. He has sent now 3 Olympians to the Olympic Games since I think 2016 or something like that. So
That's awesome.
it's pretty cool to see that. And obviously when they're guys, by the way, and both Clayton Young and Connor are both Utah guys. I think Connor is Skyview, Logan area. And Clayton's,
Utah.
Clayton's from American Fork.
Okay.
And we just recently had, and I'm going to get this wrong probably, I think it was Harriman and American Fork were nationally ranked this past season in the high school ranks, and one of them took home a national title this year.
Wow.
In the high school cross-country thing. I come from a high school at Mountain View in Orem that under Dave Hoole's direction routinely had All-Americans, athletes that would win national titles. It was crazy to watch him do his thing. His brother Eric is the head coach at Southern Utah, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got a pretty cool track and field cross-country scene here, and now it's going to be representing on the international stage.
I mean, to be honest, I love how much our state is just connected with the Olympics in general.
Yeah. Well, we have 2034. We're going to get the games back, it looks like.
Between the winter sports, some of the track and fields, the gymnastics, I probably blanking, but we just have such a strong love for Olympic sports and produce so much Olympic talent.
Yeah.
One way or another, whether they come in, whether they're actually from here, doesn't matter. It's just so cool.
Well, and the fun part is, like I said, these are 2 guys born
Utah.
and raised.
They're Utah.
They didn't come to Utah for college, and then we've had plenty of those, but they have guys that are homegrowns, I guess is the easiest way to say it. So congratulations to both of them. They finished, by the way, Michelle, Connor Mance crossed the finish line 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 5 seconds. And by the way, Clayton Young, a grand total of 1.19 seconds later.
You know what? I can think of a million things I could do and enjoy a whole lot more in 2 hours than running. So,
Well, covering 26.2 miles. Wow.
That's flying.
And by the way, like that's these two they're the two fastest American marathoners in 2023. They ran so Mance ran a 2 minutes 7 second marathon in Chicago, and Young was a 2 hours and 8 minutes. So they actually kind of slowed down the pace here. But hey, congratulations to both of them. This was down in Orlando, and we'll be obviously rooting them on. And yeah, we're gonna see. I think there's gonna be plenty of others from this state that we're representing in Paris, and we work for a station that is sending a strong representation over to Paris as well. I know that from the sports side, it's Sam Farnsworth is going over.
Yep.
So cool. It'd be awesome. So now they will have at least two they can track
and cover.
Yeah. All right. Couple of other things we need to touch on. It is the Pro Bowl this weekend, Michelle. Have you watched any of the Pro Bowl festivities in Vegas?
No. The only thing I saw
I saw your tweets. I had a similar reaction. Miles Killebrew.
Yes. Like, how and why? And also, yes, very impressed that you were able to catch that.
Yeah, so Miles Killebrew is a former Southern Utah star who has he's grinded out an incredible, I think 6 or 7 years now in the NFL.
Not bad.
They had it was punt fielding competition or whatever, and he had at least 5 or 6 footballs already in his arms, and you watch this ball go up off the jugs machine, and the final one that you and I both kind of responded to on social media, he decides, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to stick this one that's in my one hand between my legs and catch that one too. Now, Christian,
Unreal.
I know you're a proud Southern Utah alum. Were you happy to see that happen?
I love Miles Killebrew, man.
Okay.
He's been really under the radar his entire career because he's mainly a special teams guy. He was drafted by the Lions.
Correct.
But then since he's been with the Steelers, he's like that special teams player. Like, he just blocks punts when they need it.
Special teams ace.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's so cool. And it's like players like that don't get enough recognition. And then, like I said, being from Southern Utah, going to SUU, I think it's really, really cool. I never met him, but it's like I love seeing him succeed, and now getting all the social media hype with that stuff. That's awesome.
Well, and then we also saw Puka Nacua in the best catch competition. He gets on a wakeboard. He's in a wake park.
What? I missed this.
Oh, you missed it? Okay.
Oh, I'm going to have to go find that.
Yeah, so he caught a pass from the guy who was standing on the dock and threw it to him. He's behind a boat wakeboarding, and he catches a pass. Here's the thing. The Pro Bowl was such a waste of time in its game format.
Yeah.
They call it the Pro Bowl games. I like actually kind of how they've kind of developed this. Where it's okay, we're gonna have a best catch competition. We're gonna have that fielding punt. Just have some fun with it.
Right.
Have the guys still get the Pro Bowl recognition, but let's not try and trump up the fact that we're playing a non-game game.
Not get guys hurt. Not have guys sitting out because they don't want to get hurt. Yeah. Might as well. Wow. Gosh, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know how I missed that one.
There's more events happening today as well, so keep an eye on it. I only have seen it from social media. I have not tuned into it.
Yeah.
Christian, have you tuned into it at all?
No, same thing. I've been keeping up on social
I
media.
just see name pop up Puka Nacua. I'm like, all right, what did he do?
What did
he
he
caught a
do?
pass on a wakeboard. All right, cool. So
Sounds checks out. Sounds about right.
Well, Puka, that kid is eccentric is the right term, I think, for Puka. Now, we are a week away from the Super Bowl. The teams will be arriving in Vegas. It sounds like it's going to be an absolutely incredible atmosphere down there.
Oh, I have no doubt. Even despite the weird gambling rules that we already hashed out the week before. But I mean, this is a thought that I just barely had this past year, being in Vegas, but Las Vegas is set up very, very much like Indianapolis, where everything's interconnected and it's so walkable. And you can be close by to everything that's going on without necessarily being in that particular spot. So it only makes sense that an event like that would do really, really well, just like the NFL Combine does so well in Indianapolis. Like, there's reasons why it works well.
And Vegas is already a zoo when it comes to the Super Bowl. Like, just in
Yeah.
and of itself, the fact that the big show is in town,
Vegas, yeah.
like, that's just
That's going to be a
double.
party.
Well, we had Q Myers on, who's a radio host down there in Vegas with DJ and PK, and he said, "Well, they're going to have parties for the parties." Like that. He said it's just it's going to be insane. But he said, "I'm super excited about it." He said the community's buzzing and whatnot, and as you would expect, it's being embraced, and that's the fun part about it. Because he talked a lot about like how the Vegas Golden Knights, like they've become Las Vegas's team. Like there was concern that with how vagabond nature that Vegas can be with people in and out all the time, they wanted with the Golden Knights to really kind of latch on to the Vegas natives themselves.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they've done that.
You know, I have family that lives in Vegas, and I mean they avoid the Strip like crazy.
Sure,
so they're
yeah.
not gonna go to any of
Yeah.
this stuff, but they definitely talk about the teams there like they're their teams. So yes, there is like a full blown embrace of Vegas becoming a sports city. They love it down there.
Yeah. Yep, fun stuff. All right, real quick, also, we need to get some Utah Jazz talk in real quick. Now, Michelle, you and I have been talking about them surging. They'd really turn things around. And then suddenly the Jazz decided, I don't know if it's they got a big head, they thought, like, or they were exposed a little bit here.
Yeah.
But they have backslid, and that's the tough part about what's going on with this Jazz team right now is you look at it and you're like, okay, what are you guys doing here? Because they've lost 3 straight. They finished up their road trip with a blowout loss to the Brooklyn Nets. They hung around for a little bit against the Knicks, but then the 76ers, no offense, without Joel Embiid, the 76ers are
No good.
okay, but then you allow Tyrese Maxey, who, by the way, hearing his post-game interview and whatnot, kid's got an incredible personality. I'm a bigger fan of him today, but they allow him to go for a career-high 51 points right after he finds out he's an NBA All-Star, and you lose an imminently winnable game, and suddenly you are now 2 games below 500 if you're the Utah Jazz.
My, how quickly things can change.
You're not kidding, and we have a unique anomaly, and PK pointed this out. I think he was the first person to point it out, that this month, in the month of February, the Utah Jazz don't play any Friday or Saturday games, period.
Wow.
Road, home, none.
Anywhere.
Their next game, they play at home tomorrow, so Sunday. That's part of they had 3 Sunday home games this year. They're taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. It was kind of one of the unique anomalies. You're like, okay, NBA, like,
Yeah.
like
Where are the games,
Friday
man?
and Saturday night, but yeah, we have no Friday or Saturday games for the Jazz at all
In
this
February.
month. Yeah,
Wow.
it's kind of interesting, but we'll see what they do because they got a really tough stretch here. Bucks tomorrow, Thunder Tuesday, at Suns on Thursday, and then the following week, you have 2 matchups against the Warriors, sandwiched around a game against the Lakers, and that's all in the lead up to the All-Star break. So
Good luck and Godspeed.
there's like I'm looking at
That's all I can say.
Bucks, Thunder, Sun, Warriors, Lakers, Warriors. I'm just like, could you drop 9 straight? Like,
Isn't it funny? It feels like we're talking about the Jazz kind of like the way we're talking about the Utah Utes, where it's like,
yeah.
yeah, we've seen both sides of this coin. What are you doing?
yeah, they've lost 6 of 8. That's going back, and that's after. So the Warriors game that was postponed, that one's been rescheduled. It's gonna be the 15th. So. It's like, okay, we watched them surge so strongly, and they put themselves right in the thick of it. And I still believe this is a team that's got playoff like if they want to make the playoffs, Jake and Ben have been talking about it all week. They have the capability of making it. If they want to make it, they can get in, and that's probably via the play-in. But hey, you're in. Mm-hmm. The question is like, okay, are you guys screwing around here? Like, what are we doing? And the thing is that one other point real quick is Will Hardy after the Philadelphia game said, we are playing hard physically. He said our mental component at times isn't kind of matching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what's interesting, just to jump in here, is he's been on that for
Yeah.
like the last probably week or two.
Well, he has. You're
filling
right.
in on doing some of these Jazz games. Like he keeps bringing that up. That's been an issue, and it's like starting to be a really big red flag for the team.
And that kind of brings me to my point. I was like, did they get a big head? I think that they may have gotten ahead of themselves as a team. Like, oh yeah, hey, we figured it out. It's like, no.
Well, and especially when you're dealing with so many kind of younger guys.
Yes, and this is still a pretty young team.
Really cut their teeth and don't understand how quickly things can change in the NBA.
Well, it's changing right now.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So we'll see. But they got a really tough stretch in the lead up to the All-Star break. These next 6 games are very, very difficult.
And the trade deadline is next Thursday, too.
Yeah, the 8th, yes.
The
So,
chop block.
when they play, when they are in Phoenix to take on the Suns, it's actually the only, by the way, in this 7-game stretch, it's the only road game. They have 6 home games sandwiched around that road game at Phoenix on Thursday. And yes, is Trader Danny, as most people know him, Danny Ainge, is he going to make a move here? That's kind of the intrigue for the week ahead. But we'll see. All right.
I mean, if people don't produce, you may be gone.
Well, that's true. All right, we will come back on this side, wrap things up. We do need to say goodbye to a legend, and I think you know who I'm talking about, Michelle. Do you? We'll talk about it next. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, Michelle, we got to talk. This connects the sports world with the film world. Carl Weathers passed away yesterday.
I did see that.
Now, Carl Weathers is a former NFL linebacker turned movie star who has been an action icon forever. A lot of people will think of him as Colonel Dillon in Predator, opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Never seen it.
You never saw Predator?
No.
Oh my gosh, Michelle. Okay, have you seen him as Apollo Creed?
No.
Oh, this is sad. Chubbs?
No.
What? You haven't seen Happy Gilmore?
No.
I can't do this show with you anymore. I cannot do this show with Michelle Bodkin anymore, everybody. You haven't seen Happy Gilmore?
No.
Michelle Bodkin. You're going home. It's okay. But Chubbs, come on. Oh, jeez. What other movies? Oh, have you seen him in The Mandalorian as Grief Karga?
No.
Oh, jeez. What do you know Carl Weathers as? Please say Arrested Development is playing himself, but it's fictionalized.
I did actually see that just recent. I just barely watched Arrested Development.
He plays
exactly
a fictionalized person of himself.
Yes.
And he's awesome, by the way.
Funny.
Yeah.
He's like the mentor.
Yes.
Yeah, that takes him for all of his money. Yeah, funny. Good stuff. Yeah, that's
Arrested Development.
That's apparently it. And we're lucky I saw that one. I finished that maybe 6 months ago.
Okay, so he played 8 games in 1970 and 1971 for the Raiders. He played at San Diego State in his college career. He majored in theater, so it was pretty natural for him to make the transition as he did. He was in the Canadian Football League for 2 seasons, but then it went on to be in the first 4 Rocky movies. He's Apollo Creed, as most people will know him, which has spawned an entire franchise now. 5 Rocky movies, Rocky Balboa, the standalone movie, and by the way, I have a trilogy now of Creed, which is fictionalized his son, Apollo Creed. So you haven't seen any of this?
No.
You've never seen the Creed trilogy that came out recently, Michael B. Jordan?
No.
Oh my goodness, this is incredible. Let's see, Predator, Action Jackson?
No.
Oh my. Okay. Oh jeez, this is incredible, by the way. You've not seen any of these.
No.
The training montages in Rocky IV.
No. I mean, like,
That
I
whole
know
Eye of the Tiger sequence in number
number 3. Yeah,
Oh my
come
God.
on now.
I know the like run up the stairs. Da, 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 da,
That's
da,
Rocky. That's not Apollo Creed.
Okay, well, I'm familiar with that, but I haven't even watched that either. So.
Oh my goodness. Fake wooden hand Chubbs, man. Michelle, I'm putting you on a list of movies. You need to see Carl Weathers in all of his glory because he has done some incredible stuff.
You know what football player turned actor I have seen?
Who?
Merlin Olsen in Little House on the Prairie.
Everybody's seen Merlin Olsen in Little House on the Prairie from the state of Utah. Come on now.
Just saying, I'm not totally hopeless, okay?
He's Hans Olsen's uncle, obviously, but Hans will tell you he has multiple people who will meet him, realize that Merlin Olsen is his uncle, and they don't refer to, first off, the fearsome foursome in the Los Angeles Rams, his Hall of Fame career. They don't talk about him being an incredible broadcaster for the NFL after that. They don't even talk about his time as an All-American at Utah State. They talk about him being on Little House of the Prairie.
Yeah, the best friend, the Charles Ingalls' best friend.
Oh,
Darby, something Darby. I forget what the first name is. Anyway, yeah. What a note to end this show on.
Michelle Bodkin, I have never been more disappointed in you.
Oh, no. She doesn't watch movies and TV. Awful. Horrible.
You haven't seen a single movie that Carl Weathers was in or a TV show. Oh, I said one TV show.
I could get it. Like Predator is kind of like
Okay,
niche,
it's
right?
niche, yes.
But the one that surprises me the most is Happy Gilmore.
Michelle, you've seen The Waterboy, but you haven't seen Happy Gilmore. You saw the C to the A.
So here's the thing. Happy Gilmore came out when I was a kid, and my parents dictated what I watched. They don't like Adam Sandler.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
like, I did not grow up watching Adam Sandler movies because they found him really irritating, and I kind of do too. But like, The Waterboy came out when like I was of my own autonomy and I could pick things, and my friends wanted to go see it, so I saw it, and it's horrifically stupid. And Adam Sandler kind of is super annoying, but there are some great parts in it. So I do actually find myself sitting and watching it way more than I ever would have expected.
All right, Michelle, I'm going to finish off today's show with a quote from Happy Gilmore. The price is wrong, Bob. All right, that's going to do it. For the Carl Weathers list, Michelle Bodkin, I'm Jake Hatch. Big thanks to everybody. You haven't seen a single one of his movies.
No.
This is incredible. I am beside myself today. All right, that's going to do it. Have a great day, everybody. This is the Saturday Show right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.